Paranormal stories often linger in the space between skepticism and belief, whispered by those who swear they've experienced something impossible. And while many tales can be dismissed as imagination or coincidence, some accounts are so vivid and consistent that they leave even the most rational minds unsettled. Like the story of Rachel, a young woman who moved into an old Victorian house with her husband charmed by its history and antique design. Yet from the very first week, she noticed strange things. A chandelier that swayed without breeze, doors that creaked open even when locked, and the persistent feeling of being watched whenever she walked through the narrow upstairs hallway. And though her husband laughed it off, Rachel became increasingly convinced that something else lived in the house with them, especially after she began waking in the middle of the night to the sound of heavy footsteps climbing the staircase, always stopping right outside her bedroom door. And one evening, while folding laundry in the master bedroom, she glanced up to see, reflected in the mirror, a tall man in an old-fashioned black suit standing directly behind her, his face pale and expressionless. And when she whipped around, the room was empty, yet the mirror still caught the figure lingering there for another heartbeat before it vanished. And months later, they learned from a neighbor that the original owner of the home, Anchor, had died in that very room over a century ago. And Rachel insisted afterward that while she could live with creaking floors, she would never again live with a mirror in her bedroom. Another terrifying account comes from a paramedic named Luis, who had worked countless night shifts in the city and seen tragedies of every kind. But one night his partner responded with him to a call at a run-down apartment building where a woman had collapsed. And while they were treating her, Luis kept feeling the hair on the back of his neck rise, as if someone were standing directly behind him. Yet when he turned, there was nothing but a dim hallway, and after the woman was transported to the hospital, Luis went back inside to collect equipment when he suddenly heard a child crying faintly from the stairwell. Soft and pitiful and concerned, he climbed the steps with his flashlight, only to find the stairwell empty, the sound echoing unnervingly. And as he turned to leave, he saw a small figure crouched in the corner at the base of the stairs, pale with hollow eyes, its mouth open in a silent wail. And when he shouted for his partner, the figure flickered like static and disappeared, leaving behind a freezing cold that cut through his uniform. And when Lise later spoke about it, a firefighter who lived in the area admitted that residents often complained of hearing phantom children in that building, tied to a fire that had killed a family decades before. And though Lise prided himself on his rationality, he never returned to that block without an uneasy sense that unseen eyes were always following him. The third story belongs to Anna, a university student studying abroad in Ireland who joined friends for a weekend trip in the countryside, renting a small cottage near ancient ruins. And though the first day was filled with laughter, hiking and exploring, the second night took a chilling turn when Anna awoke in the early hours to the sound of someone whispering her name, low and urgent, though all her friends were asleep in the next room. And as she lay frozen, she felt the mattress dip, as though someone invisible had sat down beside her, the weight pressing her body slightly. And though she wanted to scream, her voice stuck in her throat as the whispering grew louder, now repeating phrases in Gaelic, a language she couldn't understand, but felt carried both warning and malice. And then, just as suddenly, the pressure lifted and the whispers stopped, leaving her in cold silence. And the next morning, when she told her friends, one of them, who was Irish, grew pale and explained that the ruins nearby were once part of a monastery where monks were slaughtered during Viking raids, and local legends claimed that their restless spirits wandered the land, attaching themselves to travelers who dared sleep too close. And though Anna never returned to that cottage, she admitted that for weeks afterward, she woke to the sensation of her mattress dipping, as if the unseen visitor had followed her across the sea. These three stories: Rachel's reflection of the suited man in her Victorian home, Luce's encounter with the phantom child in the stairwell, and Anna's terrifying brush with unseen monks whispering in the nightstand, as allegedly true accounts of the paranormal. experiences that defy simple explanation and linger in memory not as dreams, but as waking nightmares, reminding us that while we crave rational answers, there are still places, moments, and presences that bend the rules of reality, slipping into our lives just long enough to ensure that we never again feel truly alone in the dark.